Hello and welcome to another one of DJDD videos. Today we're going to be looking at area between two curves examples. Here we have scenario number one from the concept video, and basically this is saying that y values we're summing up, that we're integrating, are larger than this function here, because this is the greater than sign, but less than this function here. So that means that this is the bottom and this is the top function. And then this is the bottom bound of the integral and this is the top bound of the integral. So you can just go ahead and set it up. -2 to 1, because it's top function minus bottom function. You're going to have x plus 4 minus. Now make sure you put the second function in parentheses if there's more than one term, because it's minus the whole function. At that point you just integrate. So here we're going to need to simplify, so let's distribute that negative sign through. The x's cancel and we get a positive 2 dx. And then when we integrate a number, it's always a number times a constant, times a variable to the first power, sorry. And that's going to be evaluated between 1 and -2. So if I plug in the top bound minus the bottom bound, it's going to be 2 times 1 minus 2 times a -2, which is 2 minus a -2 is going to be plus 4, which is 6. And there's your final answer. Okay? You're lucky if you get this on a quiz. This is usually just to explain the concept, build you up to something a little bit more complex. Let's look at scenario number 2 exhibited in this example. Here we have a function and the x-axis. The equation for the x-axis is y equals 0. No matter what x equals, y remains 0 on the x-axis. So here we have two bounds. So what we should do is we should set y equal to y to make sure there are no intersection points in between these two values. So let's see what's going on. This is actually supposed to be a -1. I apologize. So if we do that, you get x plus 2 equals 0, x equals -2, and sure enough, -2 is in between these two numbers. So what we have here is a scenario in which our function that we're looking at the values between -4 and -1, and you can see here how the function has two regions. First region, the x-axis is the top function, and then the second region we have the line as the top function. So let's say you forgot how to graph this, you didn't know. How would you find out which ones were on top? Well, we have two integrals now, you should know. We have one integral that's going to go from -4 to -2, and then the other one that's going to go from -2 to -1. So at this point, what we would need to do is we would need to plug in a test point that's in between -4 and -2, so you can plug in -3, and when you do so, if your answer, when you plug in -3 into x plus 2, in this case, so it'd be -3 plus 2, is -1. What that tells you is that your function value, your y value, is below 0 and the x-axis is on top. That's a conclusion you should make. And if you have, let's go ahead and set up the integral. It'd be the integral from -4 to -2. And it's going to be the top function, in this case, is 0 minus x plus 2. Okay, dx. And then same scenario. In this case, I guess I should have changed it to a 0 instead of a -1. It would have been easier to plug in a -1, but it's okay. Life's not always going to be pretty, so let's pick a -1.5. I think we can add, hopefully by now, if we're doing integrals, you can add decimals to numbers. Here we're going to get a positive 0.5. That tells you that x plus 2 is on top now. So we have, without graphing, we're able to determine the top and the bottom function. So the second integral would be from -2 to -1 of x plus 2 minus 0 dx. All right, so integrate, you would distribute, add 1 to the exponent, divide by the same thing, evaluate it between -2 and -4. And then at that point you plug in, and you're going to get a -2 squared over 2, -2 times -2, and then minus a -4. Actually, there's a negative outside the parentheses and inside. That's a lot of negatives we got here. So that one is from this, and then we're plugging in a -4, which, yes, it is going to be squared, and then -2 times -4. All right, so the first one's going to give you -2 squared is 4, -4 over 2 is a -2. That's going to be plus 4, and then minus. Let's simplify this a little bit. That's going to be 16. -16 over 2 is a -8, and that's going to be -2 times -4 is a plus 8. So the second half is equal to 0. So -4 plus 2 gives me a 2 answer. All right. So those are some introductory problems. I don't want to make the videos too long, so I'm going to do a second half to the area between two curves in which we do ones without bounds. The first two were ones in which bounds were given, and then these two are going to be done next without bounds. I hope I've clarified any confusion you might have. Practice, practice, practice. Thank you, and have a nice day.